AYIN.
Okay, well, Abba Father, Yahuah, we thank you so much for your great love for us, how you have given us all of the treasures of heaven, Father. You have poured out your thesaurus, your word, onto our hearts and your spirit. You have breathed into our nostrils the breath of life with your spirit, Father. You have awakened us to your truth, to know that things are beyond our capability of just understanding how great your love is for us. And we're just so blessed and thankful to be a part of this ministry and walking with others, believers who seek to know you and your word, Father. We thank you how you've shown us a way through your Son to live a righteous life, to walk with and amongst our brothers, Father. We're just so blessed to be able to be a part of having this treasure in earthen vessels. And we're just so thankful, Father, for just each individual on this call and those that were going to watch it in the future, that you will bring healing and peace to their whole body, soul, mind, spirit, and that they will cleanse themselves with your word, Father, and confess all the great confessions that you have for us, because there's no good thing that you would withhold from us, Father, that you were willing to give us your own Son to show us how great your love is for us. And we're just so blessed and thankful to be a part of your kingdom, to walk this out. And thank you for Eric and his heart to know you. And thanks for opening up doors for him that he's not even thinking about. And he can just stay open to whatever. And we just thank you for there's great safety and a multitude of counselors. And we thank you, Father, for how we can each one reach one and awaken those from the dead, Father, and bring them into life, into this eternal kingdom. We thank you for all of this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Absolutely. The phrase you have there, what exactly is a righteous life? That's just a second, kind of an interesting concept here. There's a couple verses that we've mentioned numerous times. This week is the letter AYIN. It's in the yellow column here on the chart. And just to say, to kind of look at things, AYIN as a word, by definition, can be, you got a few different meanings. It can be a deep well. And as a well or a deep pit with water down in the bottom that you can draw up, but it's also the source of water from deep. And usually that's considered to be pure water coming from a deep underground spring where rainwater is filtered through the geological strata over time, and inferior pieces settle out. And so you're able to skim off the water and bring it up. So that's one picture of the AYIN, a deep well of, you might say, good water. You could get toxic water, but generally that's the function of a well, is that particulates settle out down at the bottom, and the water, it's pure, is available. The other meaning of AYIN in Klein's dictionary is measure carefully, weigh precisely, to look at something deliberately, scrutinize meticulously. You can pick a random selection of verbs and adjectives similarly describing that effort. So the interesting thing about the AYIN is that there's a couple of ways to draw it. I draw it with a kind of an elliptical, round-like, but not completely round, not like a finished circle, but whether you think of it as a teardrop shape, the eye shape with a corner with a dot in it. You'll see the letter AYIN drawn on occasion as just like what we would call the letter O or zero in English, with or without the dot in the middle. So just so you understand the reasoning behind this shape, besides being an eyeball or a deep well, in that case it might be a little more like a circle, is that it's like a fruit. And so some fruits are round, like an orange, but think of a lemon, maybe more of a teardrop shape. Typically has a stem coming out of the nub, the hub, the navel, you might say, the protrusion of the fruit itself. And so the little tag piece sticking out is kind of like the stem of the fruit. The eye, the pupil in the eye, the dot in the middle of the fruit would be the seed. So the very idea that that letter is drawn like a fruit or the pupil of the eye. The pupil is referred to, there's a word in Hebrew that the translation is the little man of the eye. I think it might even be the word for het bet bet, which is otherwise translated darling or dear to my heart. And you might say, well, the way the eye is, it's shiny, it's got a reflection. And if you get up real close to somebody and look in their eye, you can see the reflection of yourself in their eye. And so there's something about the reflection of myself in, but it's also called the little man of the eye, as if it's like, why would the pupil be called the little man? Just saying, that's what's in the dictionary. And there's these other concepts floating around with this idea. The interesting thing, Hanna-Barbera back in the 60s had a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon show called Yogi Bear. Yogi Bear, and he had a sidekick, a little guy named Boo Boo. It's like, who comes up with these names? Well, what's a yogi? Well, that's like, from what I know, that's like a sage from India, some spiritual advisor of another culture, of another religion. They're called yogis. Okay, well, that is that like Yogi the bear? He's the big guy, and he's the guy that's calling the shots. And who's Boo Boo? Well, he's going along with the escapades. His sidekick, there's a word Gimel Resh or Gimel Resh Hey, or like we might think Igor, Yod Gimel Resh. And you look at the Klein's dictionary, and it basically is somebody who agitates or provokes or teases, or there's another word, Mertz, like Ethel Mertz in the I Love Lucy TV show. Mertz is a Hebrew word that means to agitate or to just somebody to go along with and goad the things to happening. So when I hear the word Igor, I mean, that's just like, say, somebody's name being John or David in, say, a regular Western European country, whereas in maybe I think of Russia, Igor, that's just somebody's name. But in American movies, you might say if there's a mad scientist and he has some, maybe even a hunchback sidekick, his name is Igor. And he's the guy that's kind of scary and kind of like Marty Feldman playing in the movie Young Frankenstein. That's kind of an Igor character. So what I'm saying, the word bet, where we would get kababi or baby, is a little reflection of myself. So Yogi and Boo Boo is actually a little reflection of the sidekick, the Igor of the yogi. Well, technically, that's what we're supposed to be. When Yeshua said, follow me, he's the yogi and we're all the boo-boos, as it were, to play into that picture. Or we're all the Igors or the Gimel Resh Hey, Garaz. That kind of, you read the stories in the gospel, and some of these disciples, the Talmudim, the taught ones that Yeshua had, it's like, what is the matter with these guys? And they're kind of agitating him, provoking him, irritating him. Sometimes he plays along with them, it seems, and sometimes it's like, I would have told you guys, like at the end of his ministry, he says, I would have told you guys all kinds of stuff, but you couldn't deal with it, so I'm just, giving you some of what you could have had. And it's like, what? Like what? What would you have said if we'd been listening or we were fit, capable, able to hear? Well, make us able to hear. Come on, tell us the stuff. No. It's like, wow, come on. So you can read the gospel and say, well, that's only a little piece of what he could have said, would have said. And then at the end of, I think it's the Gospel of John, it says, gosh, if somebody would have written down all the stuff that he said and did, there wouldn't be enough books on the planet Earth to house what would be written about him. And it's like, are you kidding me? What? I mean, so we only have a little piece of what he's talking about? When he came down here to fulfill a function. What? Part of the function he's fulfilling is explaining the stuff that we really need to know and showing us how it's done. That's my understanding of why he was here. Besides of which, die on the cross so that he could resurrect and blaze this trail of the new man, the eternal life that it's possible for Adam to have. But that was the accomplishment of that particular task, to be here to die so that he could rise from the dead, blazing, as it were, the trail, as it's called, the maiden voyage of a ship. Let's say a ship is built in a harbor, in a port, at a dock, and then the first time it's launched out to sea, it's like, uh-oh, is it going to? Sometimes I've seen videos of ships that get put out to sea and they tip over and sink right there in the harbor. It's like, oops, well, somebody did something wrong there. But to actually say, well, take a ship and say, like even a spaceship, its purpose is to be able to, and you give certain list of requirements, X, Y, Z, and you send it off to, I hope it makes it, like Lewis and Clark, two famous explorers in the late 1700s. And in what's North America, they went from the East Coast all the way out to the Pacific coast and back, and they blazed a trail of discovery and also access to say, well, what does this place look like and how does this work? And they made it back. If they didn't make it back, then people still would have no idea. What are we dealing with? What does this look like? Is it even possible? Like trying to find a Northwest Passage in the people that had landed in North America, they go up to Hudson Bay, what's now called Hudson Bay. There's this huge mass of water heading west, and all of a sudden they bump into land, and well, you can't cut across it through what's now Canada. But the idea is nobody knows. Is there a waterway that'll take you as a Northwest Passage from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific? And there is not, or they could not find it. So there would be a failed mission, find the passage. Well, there isn't one. Okay. But for Yahushua to say, I mean, imagine this is a hypothetical sort of wondering, pondering. You could say, well, when Elohim made the universe, he knew everything that was going to happen. He already knows what's going to happen. He knows the future. He knows the past. He knows he knows every hair on everybody's head of every animal and person and every little thing on every bug that's ever been alive on the earth. And it's like, boy, that's a lot of information. Is it useful information? It's like, well, to him, he knows it and it's very useful, I guess. But you got to say, well, so what? I mean, there's a lot of information. Is it useful information? Is it unuseful information? But he knows everything. So he doesn't need to experiment, or he doesn't need to test or try, or he knows it's going to work. Okay, yeah, but there's something about, for Yeshua, now let's just say, take just as a story narrative. Call him Yeshua, call him Yahusha, call him Jesus, the one that we're referring to, the J-man, who somehow was in some phase or format of existence before he shows up on the face of the earth. Some people might get upset about that. It's like, come on, even angels or devils, they have some aspect or form of existence before they appear on the face of the earth, don't they? And some people say, that's all Christian, blah, blah. It's like, okay, look, if you don't want to talk about it, then just go away. We're discussing a concept. The concept is, well, now we have to give definitions. gosh, we're trying to tell a story, and I got to stop and give definitions so we can at least be in agreement. And if I say, well, the one we call God, well, some people say, well, God's a bad word. It comes from a kind of a Gothic Indo-European root of good fortune or luck. And it's like there was a Canaanite deity called GD, God, or Gada, like the tribe of Gad. And it's like, well, that's not the name of the author, the creator of the universe. Well, let's just call him Elohim. What does Elohim mean? Well, Elohim is in the plural. The phonetic sound im is plural. You could call him Allah. Hey, that's like the Muslims calling their God Allah. Same word. Hebrew and Arabic sounding that language is they're like cousin or sister languages. Well, what's Allah? Well, Aleph Lamed is pronounced L or something like L, E-L or A-L in English. In Spanish, El might mean just simply the. Well, who's El? The. If there's any the to point to that is invisible, that is huge, that's bigger than we can even describe, it's El. But we would write it, because it's Aleph Lamed, we'd write it A-L. Okay, well, you got to start somewhere. Let's start in the very beginning. A very good place to start. There's a song about that. A. What's A? As in A-L. What's L? So the only way it's like you got to say, gosh, we're trying to get on with a story, and now we're back here with, that's the way it works. You got to have definition of terms. The alphabet starts with A. What's A? What's Aleph? Plan, purpose. One, steadfast ox. Between, begin, vortex, funnel, consolidate. If you look at all this, it's like, well, these are, again, this is, what is the Aleph from the perspective of an alphabet? What is it from a Dalet perspective? What is Aleph? And I could explain all these things. We'll do that later. But right now we're going through another part of this class, this course. But right now we're going through each letter. So from the AYIN perspective, what's the Aleph? The eye in the sky. Yeah, but what's an AYIN from an Aleph perspective? Assessment of function. What's the difference between the Aleph perspective of an AYIN or the AYIN perspective of an Aleph? Well, that's what this whole top piece of this is. So this is what each letter is across the top in these columns, and this is each letter's perspective. So if this is the Aleph perspective about an AYIN, and this is the AYIN perspective about the Aleph. Eye in the sky. Well, it's describing the Aleph. So if the Aleph is the eye in the sky, there's a song about that. Kind of like people who say, hey, that's that occultic thing on top of the pyramid. And it's like, it's a concept. Whoever, whatever the thing that's watching, that's observing, that's contemplating whatever's going on, that one, that's the Aleph. But what's the AYIN from the Aleph's point of view? The assessment of function. That's kind of like a judge. Yeah, but to assess function, is that behavior or is that potential? Is that, well, we'll get into that, but I'm just saying that's what's going on up here. So if you start with the Aleph, that's the eye in the sky. What's Lamed? Well, the Lamed from an Aleph point of view is judicial application. But what's the Lamed from an AYIN point of view? Reasonable? Just so you know, all this stuff up here was my own thinking. Now, some of these things you might find validated, like Aleph being a steadfast ox, so that's the bet perspective of an Aleph. The word Aleph means ox. It's not just an ox, it's strong, solid, steadfast. So it's an adjective about a noun, but bet itself is a noun thing, an object. Gimel's a verb thing, a function. It's a door, and as a door, it's an option, it's a choice. You come to a door, you could be inside or outside. You come to a T intersection, you turn right or left, or stay where you are. I mean, see, every letter presents a concept, a place, an occasion of. That's the way the alphabet's designed. And so to sit and think about what's the Zodi from a Tav perspective, well, every one of these is that type of thing. So the study of the ALEF-BEIT from this eriktology point of view is to say, well, you got to start somewhere. And where are we going with all this? So you got to start at the very beginning. What's an Aleph? Because Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1, the first letter is a bet. There's a mystery. We've talked about this before. And the mystery is, why doesn't it start with Aleph? That's where it begins, but why does it start with a bet? It's the first letter, the first word of the first book, bam, starts off with a mystery. That'll tell you something. Think about that. Why did he do that? Elohim telling Moshe what to write. Starts off with a mysterious perplexity, conundrum, right in the first letter. That tells you something about who they is. Well, let's call it he. There was somebody that an Israeli lady was talking to a friend, and the friend said something about he's, referring to the God character, and she said, "How do you know it's a he? How do you know it's masculine?" It's like, oh, that's right. I mean, how do you know? Well, the simple answer to that is especially if you know Hebrew, if you go to Exodus 3, Moshe, called Moses, but in Hebrew it's more like Masha or Moshe, at the burning bush incident, Exodus chapter 3, and he says, hey, when I go back and tell the Israelites that are there in slavery in Egypt that I was talking to you, they're going to say, yeah, who was it? What's his name? Who was it was it? What should I tell him? And he said, tell him Ahiyah sent you. And it's like, Ahiyah, okay. You ever heard that word? Anybody ever heard that word, Ahiyah or Ahayah? Spelled Aleph-He Yod-He. Tell them Aleph-He Yod-He sent you. Are they supposed to know who that is? It's translated I am, but some translations say I will be. Well, which is it? See, in English, it's like it's one or the other. It's present tense or it's potential for the future. In Hebrew, it's simply Aleph-He Yod-He, Ahiyah, Ahayaha. Yeah, but what does that mean? What's it mean? Aleph as a prefix means I am or I will. It's the capacity of self-referential, of identity and intent of the author of the composition of the communication. That's Aleph. Yeah, where's the steadfast ox? And I say that mockingly because I was talking to a guy one time in Jerusalem, and this guy is a big shot, knowing the language, and I said something about Aleph meaning something, and they know that the word Aleph means ox. He says, you can't tell me that every time there's an Aleph in a word, it's referring to an ox. I never said that. Where'd you come up with that? Don't accuse me of projecting that information. There's a picture of an ox in the word Aleph. You could say Aleph means ox, but that picture's in reference to the characteristic, which is similar to the characteristic of Alephness. And you ought to know that. I didn't say that to him, but technically, if you know the language, you'd think that there's a basic common agreed to understanding that this is the way the language works. Apparently not. Just so you know, this perspective of what do the letters mean, how do they fit together, and how do the language work is not a common belief that everybody agrees with. It's renegade, avant-garde, wacky woo-woo to some. It's just this like, what are you doing? What? Who said? And I've heard people make comments like that on the internet, seen comments in other people's posts. Somebody sent a thing from Jeff Benner, Ancient Hebrew, I think it's .org. But anyway, Christians. It's like, what? This guy claims to be some Israeli or Hebrew scholar, and he's saying Jeff Benner is just making up all this stuff. And it's like, whatever. Look, it's a way of looking at things. And if you don't like it, you could write your own post and yap about how it doesn't mean this if you want. I mean, nobody cares. This is the study of, hey, this is the way to look at it. I'm trying to describe the ironing of the alphabet, if you didn't notice. I'm saying, how do you iron the entire alphabet? You start with Aleph. That's a good place to start. You start by saying, what are you looking at? Can you identify what you're looking at? How do you weigh it, measure it, determine, deliberate, scrutinize? I mean, you come up with all these other words, like looking into the pure water that's really deep down in the well. So it's taking all these ideas. And so what we're doing is ironing. No, this is all iron. This is the iron perspective of every letter. So you could say the ironing of the alphabet could be read going this way. It's on this side and this side, but the red letters just to help make it easier to observe. So one way of realizing this is that, well, if that's the way the alphabet is built, then each one of the letters, which is why it's laid out this way, each one of the letters is a perspective of how to see each one of the other letters. And it's like the idea of saying, just look and observe. Well, yeah, but what if you've got astigmatism and it's all blurry? Or what if you're nearsighted or farsighted? Or what if you got a bug in your eye and you can't see 3D? I mean, what are you looking at? There's never just what is it? Now, how do you describe it? Are you colorblind? Are you seeing something the same as this person or not? Well, nobody knows. What color is that? It's yellow. What phase of yellow? If the other guy's colorblind, he might be looking at gray. He's calling it yellow because that's the agreed on socially acceptable identifier word of that. The color of that sign, the middle light in a three-colored stoplight is yellow. But the person knows that that light is on. If he's colorblind, he's not necessarily seeing the same thing you're saying. We're both calling it yellow. We both know it's the illuminated middle of the three lights on that stoplight, but you have no idea what color he's actually seeing that his brain is telling him that is. Well, see, that's the way it works with the definition of words. So when somebody says God, what is that? Is that a good word or a bad word? Well, what are we looking at? God, a tribe of Dan. Oh, the Canaanite deity of fortune and luck. No, it's the creator of the universe. Well, what did he call himself? Ehyeh. Okay, let's refer to Ehyeh. But then he goes on. See, that's Exodus chapter 3. But he says, he elaborates a little bit. Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. What does that mean? I am that I am. But look at the word. The word Asher, Aleph Shin Resh, means who, that, which. WHICH. Which is the one that just said that? Asher. But it also means happy and blessed. Blessed is the man. Ashri ha'ish. Psalms 1. And it also means straight, right, authentic, validated, confirmed. It's like this is that absolute, pure, true right. Well, Ehyeh, I am. So I think of it in terms of geometry. Something doesn't exist, it's just not there. What's the smallest reference of something that exists? A dot, a point in geometry. Boom, 1 point. How big is the point? A point is so big, so small that between any 2 points, even if they're right next to each other, the concept in geometry is you could stick an infinite number of other points between these two. Yeah, but they're touching. Nah, they're never touching. They're side by side, but points are so small, infinitely small. In geometry, the concept is it's a logical, reasonable statement of existence. Between any 2 points, you can draw an infinite number of other points, but 2 points also establish a line. Well, the word asher, aleph, shin, resh, literally is the word line. So if ehyeh, I am, I exist, because yod yod is the verb to exist, hey yod hey is also to exist, hey vav hey is to exist. Anything spelled with heys and vavs, maybe even alephs and tavs thrown in, is simply the verb of some aspect to exist. So if aleph means I am or I will, then ehyeh literally means I am existing, or I will exist, or I cause myself to exist, because the yod is this hand that causes function, grab, make, do, force, power. So why in his name is aleph, hey, yod, hey? Yod is the 10th letter. Yeah, but what is the value or meaning of that 10th letter? And the hey is the 5th letter. So here's the thing. The Elohim, the responsible party for inventing and making the universe, can't even tell us what his name is unless it's pre-established, because he already made it, what all the letters are, what they mean, and how they function. So just thinking about it, hey, who shall I say sent me? He didn't even say, what's your name? He says, who shall I say? Very interesting logic of Moses there. Who shall I tell him sent me? Ehyeh. Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. But then he goes on to say, Yahuah. See, now this is a change. It's Yod He Vav He. Yahuah. Yahuah is my Shem Zakar. And going back to what I say, that lady says, hey, how do you know it's a he? Because the word Zakar, look in the dictionary, Zion Kaf Resh, it means to remember, but it also means to stick in your mind, like it's got a barbed hook, like a fish hook in a fish's mouth that he can't spit out. That's zakar, a thorn, a hook, something that grabs in your head and you won't let go of. So it means to remember, it means to commemorate, it means to recall to mind. You can't shake it loose. He said, Yahuah is my Shem Zakar, but the word Zakar, Zayin Kaf Resh, also means masculine, male, man. It also is the tool, like a shovel, that you plunge into the ground to open the ground to plant the seed. You're planting crops. Or the male organ, which opens the female organ to plant seed. It's the word zakar. And it's like, that's just what it is. Well, hey, look, the AYIN's got a seed in the middle of it. So, hey, there's something about the zakar, masculine, Shem zakar, Yahuah, something about that issue having to do with the letter AYIN, because it's a related concept, which is pretty darn close to not just being related, but being of the same family. So what I'm saying is that to answer the lady's question, who's Israeli, and how do you know it's a he? Because he said Yahuah's is Shem Zakar, was his masculine reference. But the trick, the irony is Yod Vav He, the He is the feminine suffix. What? If you just call him Yahu, Yod Vav, that Vav is the masculine suffix, but the He is the feminine suffix. Well, it's not about male and female. It can be, but it's not necessarily male and female. Like in Spanish, if a word caso is thing, casa is house. Well, that's kind of masculine and feminine. House, that which you go into, and that which is this place of refuge and comfort and your abode. Whereas the thing, the caso, is the masculine thing. I'm just saying, you can sit there and look at any words and start running with it, and you'll probably be pretty accurate. You could probably take any word, any set of words in any language, and track this thing down and find that it fits. Because it's the fractal DNA of the entire universe. It just is. But if Hebrew, Ivrit, Kadem, Adam Kadmon is known as the original man, the Adam, Kadam, Kuf Dalet Mem is ancient, primordial of antiquity. So this is a Shafa Kadam. This would be the original language. So that before the Tower of Babel, I believe this Ivrit, Hebrew, was the language that was spoken. And then at the Tower of Babel, Elohim changed it into 70 different languages, and they've been evolving ever since. Some people say there's, a guess, something like 7,000 languages on the face of the earth today. In Zephaniah 3:9, he said he was going to return or to turn. That's English. You got to look at it in Hebrew. To turn a pure language to the earth, so that there's a reason behind the function, so that we can all worship him with a united resolve, a singular shoulder. How do you worship him with your shoulder? If you've been on a construction crew, there's a big beam that you got to move into place, weighing hundreds of pounds, and you got a crew of maybe a dozen guys. They all just ready, 1, 2, 3, when you move this thing. I mean, you could say, well, 1 or 2 guys could drop off, and it's like, no, it takes everybody with a united resolve to serve Elohim with a singular shoulder to serve. But the word obed is serve, like a slave, like a workman, but it's also to worship. It's where we get the word obed, obedience, Obadiah. It means to worship, to work, to labor, and to worship is all AYIN bet dalet. AYIN bet is the word for cloud, a thick cloud, or something thick, like a thick woven cloth. Thick smoke. AYIN bet is something thick, but bet dalet, bad, bada. Where's that word used? First chapter of Genesis. It says Adam was different than all the other creatures that were made to exist. He found himself alone. He was told to name the animals, but there was none like him. He was a singular, unique creation. He was bet dalet. So bet dalet literally means singular, not like any other. There's a word kavod, translated glory or honor, kaf bet dalet. Kaf is a prefix letter, means like. So you could read the word glory or honor, kavod, as like no other, because bet dalet means there's no other. You're all alone. So if there's I'm just giving you away pictures of how the language works. If there's a tree and there's one really nice straight branch, well, I'm going to get a saw, a tool, and an axe. I'm going to chop that branch off, peel the bark off, and polish it up, make it smooth. And now I'm going to use it as a pole, a rod for hanging clothes on in my house. I've now cut that branch off from its other kin growing on the tree in the forest. I've taken it into my house. I've refined it, polished it, made it smooth, and now placed it where I can appreciate it. What I just did to that branch is bet dalet. Well, that's exactly what happened to Adam. And within the consideration of all the Adams, that's exactly what Yahuah has done with Israel. Finding it amongst the other branches, the other people, the other nations, he chose Israel because Abraham would teach his children. That's the reason. And he took it and he made a covenant promise with Israel, and he took Israel in. And because Israel was to be Yashar, Yod Shin Resh, a derivative of Aleph Shin Resh, which is straight, which is right. And when he says Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, the straight line connects the 2 dots. So the geometrical equivalent of I am that I am, or I will be what I will be, is of Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh is a dot, line, dot. Just so you know, there's the graphic. And that's supposed to be Israel. Who's connecting the 2 dots of what? Well, see, the straight line of connection is a concept not just a word. It is a word, it is a straight line, it's an object, but it's also this concept. Well, who's the two dots? It's a picture of the covenant between Yahuah and Israel. It's a picture of the correlation between Yahuah or Ab, the father, and the Yahuah of Yahusha, the son, who said, I only do what I see my father doing. I only say what I hear my father saying. So there's this line of Asher between Eke and Eke. Well, does that mean Jesus is the father? No, it's not is. It's a concept of a connection. Wow. All that to say that whoever this Yahusha is, see, Israel's also supposed to be this connecting, the branch cut off, polished, refined, brought into the Father's house, exclusive relationship, just to finish that concept. That's Israel by definition of Yashar, Yashar El, Yod Shin Resh, Aleph Lamed. Some people say, Israel spelled with a Samic. And it's like, Yod Samic Resh is not the same as Yod Shin Resh. Sounds the same phonetically, and somebody can play with that and run with that, and you can listen to them if you want. But Yod Shin Resh is the derivative of Aleph Shin Resh, which is Asher, which is blessed, which is praiseworthy, which is straight, right, authentic, valid, validated, confirmed, that whole thing, which is right there in his name. Just so you know, there's thinking behind every word. But you come back here to say, well, whoever Yahusha is, if he's defined by these 22 letters, then he's in this Aleph zone. And somehow the Aleph, El, Elohim, is the responsible party, however he did it, and whatever his size, appearance, description, Aleph is beyond description. And time, because time and space is something manufactured. So therefore, by definition, anything in the Aleph realm of infinite, undescribable is outside of time and space, because time and space is something made within the Bet zone. There's this term called Zimzum that somebody says, that's Kabbalah. You say, this has nothing to do with Kabbalah. The Kabbalists are the ones that have this term to describe the concept which is found in the Kuf, which is to say, if everything's one, if everything's just echad before the creation of the universe, then where is the universe? Is the universe infinite? And so the Elohim character guy who it, they, whatever it is, nothing exists. It's just before the creation of time, space, and matter. Everything is just there, one. Let's call it the infinite heaven. So the one who was to be the creator ends up being the creator, decided to, hey, I'm gonna invent a place where there's place. A place where there's a place. Doesn't exist because nothing exists in time and space or matter yet. So let's say he makes this, now this place, say like my fist, is going to exist in the middle of everything else, but it's different. It's Dalit compared to everything else that's heavenly. And in this place, he's going to put an earth and he's going to put man. So he gives it a volume, and then he has to inject into the volume. Hey, that's kind of like planting the seed. The conception event, the female space, the male projection of its self DNA, the seed. Yeah, but that's the universe, like the circle of the Kuf, our letter Q, and the line, the injection into it, where he fills it with what? Air? Ether? That's the expanse of the universe inside the Kuf. And inside that is the earth, that he plants in there a man, and in the heart of man is the DNA or the word of Elohim, the heart of man. See, it's just the same picture, fractal pattern again, 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 again. And they call that Zim-Zum, Z-I-M-Z-U-M. And that's all I know about it. I've never studied that out. Just so you know, people identified, oh, that's what that is. And what's the guy's name? He wrote a book called Messiah 1, 2, and 3. Avi. Anyway, his last name escapes me at the moment. Anyway, he wrote the book about that. And he talked about that. But the concept is that concept there in the Kuf is like a straw in a balloon, like you blow it up, or the impregnation event. Putting the seed in the AYIN. And the exclusive, not like the environment, the one within the whole, that's kind of like I am. Well, that's Elohim. But he gives a Yahuah, but this is this exclusive Shem Zakar. This name is going to stick in your head. Oh, okay, tell him Ehyeh sent you, but yeah, what is this Yahuah? And everybody who knows the language, who thinks about the language, has to agree, because that's the way the language works, that that's the masculine concept of identity of function. Well, he's the father. What does it mean, father? He's the guy who stuck his seed into the universe, making man, Adam. He's the guy who stuck his seed into man, making Israel. He's the guy who took Israel and put his seed into Israel's heart as a Ben Yakiri, as a good son. So when Ephraim says, bring me back, and I will come back, he was yielding his right of volition as an Aleph, Jeremiah 31. But he says, I need your help. I need you to activate within me. I need you to supplement whatever I am personally, as you made me this bet character. I volitionally, of my own recognizance, I'm an Aleph. I have this body, this bet, and I want to tether Gimel to you. I have Dalet chosen, decided to, but hey, I realize I have this insight that I'm missing some kind of connection, Vav connection, that's distinguished as a certain thing. Well, there's the Zion, the distinguishing Chet, and if I had that, there's this realm of being, you might say the heavenly realm, or one of the heaven, that if I otherwise don't have it, I'm lost and dead. I have either life or death. I'm either blessed or I'm cursed. I need your help. See, the word Yeshua, Shua, spelled Shin Vav Ayin, is a cry for help. So to call his name Yahshua, help me. But Yahusha, Yahu, hey, where's the, hey, wouldn't it be Yahuah Shah? Yahuah Shah? Could be, but Yahu is the masculine suffix of Yahuah. So when he says his name is Yahuah, is he just revealing Yahu? Because that's what the hey suffix does. See, once you start breaking it down, you realize, well, every letter means something. The phonic of every day means something. There's all this stuff going on. But every time I hear the word Yahu or Yahuah, suddenly, because I've learned this stuff, my mind is, going through all this. What does it mean? What does it mean by that? What does it mean this, but not that, or that, but not this? And it's like, oh, wait, it's not just Yahweh. What's his name? Don't call him that. He, it, they. Nobody knows. So in order to have a conversation, somebody's got to define the words and agree on the words. But what I was trying to say is the very fact that he uses Aleph, Hey, Yod, and Hey, or Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, means he had to pre-invent the alphabet and give every letter a place and every letter a meaning, a function, and an effect on all the other letters at the get-go, before he did anything else. Even before he made the kuf that he injected his seed into, his DNA. What's his DNA? His likeness at a fractal minimum. Of course, being fractal, there is no minimum. It's like between two dots, points, there's an infinite number of other points. He invented that too. But even the letter kuf shows him doing something he had to do before the bet, if him existing as the Aleph. So what I'm saying is that you start thinking about this stuff, and there's a logic, there's a reason, there's a time sequencing sort of function where, to start at the beginning, you have to have the whole, but you have to have the whole before you know where you're starting. It's kind of like the mysterious puzzle of Ayin Dalet hyphen Ayin Tav. Daniel 12:4, translated until the time. There's no the. It's not Ayin Dalet Hey ALEF-TAV. Hey is a prefix letter of meaning the. Ayin Dalet hyphenated with Ayin Tav. What does that mean? Ayin Dalet is translated until, but Ayin Dalet is also witness and testimony. Ayin Dalet Yod, if you know what the Yod suffix means, it means my personal, I own it, it's my stuff. Witness, testimony, but also adornment, ornamentation, choice best treasure. This is the testimony. This is my choice best treasure, because this stuff speaks cleanly and purely and absolutely of me, my Alephness, my identity and intent. This is my design, my functional thing that has a purpose of communication. And he's talking in Leviticus 23 about the Moedim, Mem Vav Ayin Dalet, Yod Mem plural, Im. So when you start studying the language, you realize, why would Elohim call the Moedim in Leviticus 23? Well, see, it doesn't say Moedim. That's the way it's translated. These are my appointed times, plural. These are Moedi. He doesn't add the M. If you look at the way it's written, Mem Vav Ayin Dalet Yod. Moedi. This is my. Look in the dictionary. Ayin Dalet is witness or testimony. Ayin Dalet Yod makes it my witness and testimony, but Ayin Dalet Yod is also adornment, ornamentation, bejewelment, and choice best treasure. And it's something which can be lopped off and taken away, like turning the bull into a steer. Steer can't procreate. So to take away the Moedim is literally to castrate the father, Yahuah, and turn him into a representative bullock, a laboring ox who can't reproduce his own DNA. Yeah, and that gives us Sunday, Christmas, and Easter, doesn't it? Because they're not the Moedim of the father Elohim, who calls himself Ehyeh or Yahuah. See, once you start looking at this stuff and you realize, well, then he's not going to, if you've taken away his Moedim, then Yahuah, who calls himself the deity who gave his people his Moedim, so a piece of him could be in them, take over them like the seed within you, like in the Mem noons out of you. If you don't have his seed, like the Yod, the little part that's, this is mine, this is me, that Taf is a line, like a line of text, but it's also a furrow where the seed is planted in the furrow, hoed in by the lamed, like a tool of cultivation. See, the pictures in here is that, well, the Kaf, that's the female getting the seed planted. The Mem is the womb. There's a closer detail, and the Nun is that seed that's growing, developing, that jumps out, which also not only is the offspring picture, but it's you unto eternity picture. See, so you got to see the whole picture. And Samach is the tree with the branches bearing fruit, like the menorah bearing light, and the fruit is the ayin, and the pei is something that opens. Well, your mouth opens, you eat the fruit, but what also opens? Well, the word spelled etz, ayin zadi, is a tree, literally the word tree, but zadi is a sprout of blossoming, of flourishing. Ayin is eyeball, so you could say, well, the word tree is ayin, the fruit turning into a tree. What about pei? Pei is not even used in that word, but it also means to take counsel, but it also means to turn into wood, which is to lignify. And you go, lignify? Become wood? Well, petrify means become stone, so ayin zadi lignify means to turn into wood, which is kind of a non-functional, but wood is generally coarse and rough and hard. You can plane it, mill it, turn it into something, and burn it. That's like the word straw. Straw is a feeble sense of etz, but it's still like a piece of wood. But straw is something stubborn and resistant. You can burn in the fire. But like rebar, you can't burn that. But it's a piece of straw, which is actually the word kufshin. See, so once you start looking at these things and you go, how does this work and why does that work? You start with one little thing and it turns into this whole big thing real fast, real easy, just by trying to understand. And then you realize this whole language is tied together like a big knot, like a big labyrinth, like a big puzzle. But if you start looking at it and trying to iron it, you realize it's not arbitrary. It's made like this on purpose. Just like the letter bet used in Bereshit on purpose. And the letter bet is not just house, there's something in the house. The word house, bet, also means, is the same definition of Aleph, which means taught, trained, and domesticated, to be of the house, not just in the house. An ox isn't in the house, it's in the barn, it's out in the field. Strong, steadfast, you can yoke it, you can work it. To plant the seeds in the furrow, to pull the plow, lameding. Lamed means teach and learn. So if you look at the alphabet and you say, the word for teach and learn is also the word that looks like a hoe, which is used to plow dig the furrow, remove the weeds, which is used to plant the seed, which is picture of what happened. The AYIN, the seed is the word AYIN, literally the fruit with the seed within it. Well, you can't get that with a genetically modified fruit. Christmas, Easter, and Sunday is genetically modified fruit. It's not Yahweh's AYIN Dalet. Absolutely not. They can say, oh, yeah, we're going to paint smiles and the eyes just like Yahweh has on this fruit. It's like, that's like making a golden calf. It's not him. He said, do not make any likeness representing him. He's invisible. So the same way for the Israelites to have a golden calf as soon as they came out of Egypt, dancing around it at Mount Sinai, is just like saying, well, let's worship Jesus on Christmas and Easter. You can paint his picture, you can write his name. It ain't him, because he said don't do that. And he also gave us the Moedim of Leviticus 23, and these aren't that. He gave us the Sabbath day, the seventh day, and the church gave us the first day instead of, that's right, changing the Sabbath day. You can't do that. Well, they did it. Well, yeah, but it's illegitimate. They took the testimonies off the father Ehieh and gave us a steer that can't reproduce itself. I'm just ironing. I'm just looking at the letters and seeing this story. And it's all through the scripture. See, you start ironing here, and you're going like, yeah, but I know what I'm looking at. Well, you got to go back and Lamed the Kaf. You've got to tend the seeds that he gave us. And Yeshua said, listen, the kingdom of heaven is like this farmer planting seeds in the field. And so for him to give us these parables, it's like he's telling us the clues to how to decipher the riddle. Why do you speak in parables? Why is everything in these dang riddles? He told us so that those who can't see, don't want to see. See, the word can't, does that mean they're unable? Did he create Adam, various options of Adam, who is impossible for them to see? Ha! Gonna throw you into the fires of hell. That's all you're good for. I made you that way. Don't complain. You're just the clay and I'm the potter. I've heard people talk this way that, well, if he doesn't give me the power to see, I can't see. It's not my fault. Don't blame me. But see, that comes from the doctrine that says, well, he made you like this. I think Romans 8 talks about, how can the potter say to the clay? But he said, Yahweh said, well, through Moses in Deuteronomy, I put before you life and death, blessing and cursing, and I urge you to choose life. So does every Adam have the right to choose life? Well, I don't have what it takes to understand all this. He didn't say that you had to have what it takes to understand all this stuff. He said, choose life. Which means every atom somehow at a root place within them, a basic deep inner heart, they can either choose life or choose death. There's no middle ground. There's no option of being on the fence. There's either choose life or choose death. Well, I'm not sure how to. Yes, you do. You either choose life or you choose death. That's like saying, if the universe is bet, how did it get here? Prove how it got here. It got here by Aleph. What's Aleph? Aleph, by definition, is unknown, undescribable. It's the silent letter. Nobody can identify Aleph. You thought you had the best leverage on the argument? By definition, Aleph is silent and cannot be defined. That's why it starts with bet in Bereshit 1:1. That's the riddle. We find ourselves in the universe and say, how did it get here? By logical default, Aleph is how it got here, but it can't be defined. There you go. Well, then what's Aleph? You can't define Aleph. But if you know the alphabet, Aleph is defined by all the other 21 letters. So to study the alphabet teaches you about history and science and philosophy and psychology, how to get along with each other, sociological placement. It's all in here. So where did Yeshua come from and how did he manage all? Nicodemus, his contemporary, a pretty smart guy, great teacher of the Jews, came to Yeshua by night and says, hey, we've been watching you, John chapter 3. He says, we know you come from Elohim. We see you, Bet. We've been watching you. We see your Bet form, and we know you come from Elohim, Aleph. We know you come, the word spelled Bet Aleph means to come or arrive or import. Hey, we see you in the Bet form, a human being walking on the face of the earth in the universe, and we know that you Bet Aleph from Aleph. Somehow, in some capacity, in some mechanism, we don't understand, but we know you come from Aleph because, and now here's the connection, there's a gimmeling going on. Nobody can do the things you do unless Elohim is with him. So we've determined that not only do you come from Elohim, but Elohim is with you. You're not contrary to the one we regard as Elohim. We just don't get it. We don't understand. Hey, see, hey's the next letter. Hey, could you give me some? Well, see, we don't know what Nicodemus came to ask, because at that point, Yahusha, John chapter 3, picks up the conversation and starts asking him questions and making comments and leading him on this trail. And it's like, what trail? We don't know what Nicodemus even came to talk to Yahusha about. Well, Yeshua talks to him in chapter 3, verse 16, John 3:16, about being born again. And he said, man, supposed to go back into his mother and be born? How do you do that? They can't do that. It's like, you think what an idiot, Nicodemus. Come on, you don't get back in your mother. That's a sin if you were to do that. No, wait a minute. What if he's asking him about reincarnation? You see, you read it in English, and it's a stupid question, Nicodemus. You're the leader of the Jews. What a bunch of idiots. No, wait a minute. But if he's talking about reincarnation, hey, wait a minute, Yeshua. A man has to be born again. Are you saying that he has to be born as a second incarnation from a mother, from a human mother? Well, there's a lot of really smart people in a lot of other religions, including Judaism, that believe in reincarnation. That's not such a stupid question after all, is it? We don't know how this place works. Maybe there is reincarnation. How many millions of people in India or the Orient believe in reincarnation? Are they a bunch of idiots? Or maybe it's not such an idiotic question. Maybe there is reincarnation. Not in Christianity, but who's asking them? Jesus said you had to be born again. And if we think, but what he meant was born unto eternal life. How do you do that? Why didn't he say, well, Nicodemus said, what do you mean I got to get born in my mother again? And Jesus said, no. What's born of the flesh is flesh. What's born of the spirit is spirit. You got to be born of the spirit. Well, how do I do that? 5 minutes. How do I get born of the spirit? You know, what Jesus should have said to him right there in John chapter 3 is, ask me into your heart, Nicodemus. I'll come into your heart. He didn't say that. He didn't say, hey, Nicodemus, ask me into your heart. When Yeshua sent his disciples out to preach the gospel, right, there was like 70 people and went well before the crucifixion. Did he ever say, hey, tell him you got a friend back here in Nazareth in Galilee, and say, he wants you to ask him into your heart so you can be born again of the Spirit and have eternal life. Go tell him that. That's the gospel. Go preach the gospel and tell them to invite me into their heart. He didn't tell him that. What did he tell him? See, this question of what is the gospel really? Good news. Gospel is the word basar, bet shin resh, which means meat, like carne, meat that you eat, food, or the meat, the pulp of a fruit is also called basar, but it's also good news. That's called basar. So what's the gospel? Well, if you've got the shape of the fruit and you've got the seed of the fruit, the pulp of the mass of the fruit is called the basar. Is that the gospel? See, if you take all these concepts and you start plugging them in, you go, gosh, we're still back to the beginning. We haven't even, if we're chasing rabbits, this rabbit's all over the place. It's like, good luck trying to make sense of it. What if the shape of the AYIN is a field with a fence around it, like a pen, and the dot is the rabbit running around that we've been chasing here for the last hour? Like a bull in a pen, like the seed in the fruit, pupil in the eye, DNA in the cell. The meaning of a word surrounded by the descriptions and definitions of the word, the real meaning of what's going on, the real identity of Yeshua, that's the dot. In the surrounding story, the facade, the clothes, the enclosure, the identity within the appearance. If we're supposed to judge the fruit, are we looking at how ripe the basar is? Are we looking at how damaged the skin is? Or are we looking at the nature of the heart, the nature of the seed? See, if it's the seed which harbors, holds the actual reality of identity, then the witness and testimony is the story of what it looks like. So the witness and testimony of the AYIN Dalet is the skin, the shape, the mass, but the reality is at the DNA in the center. That's what we need to find. And so when you realize Sunday, Christmas, and Easter have nothing, yeah, but neither do the sacrifices and offerings. Get to that. Psalms 50 talks about that. What's in the interior? What is that reality? That's Yahusha. See, Jesus, JC, the J-man, that's the name. Hey, he dressed up, and he's got people with fancy hats and robes and gold, and they steal stuff from everybody else and make these great places for them to hang out. It's like, that's not Yahusha. See, that's not Yahusha's heart. Yahusha's heart is his Father's heart, which is found in the Leviticus 23, and it is found in the chok, the commands, the mitzvot, Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5. If you can identify the Father, you can identify the Son. If you can identify the Son, you can identify the Father. That's this line between the two dots. If Israel is being Israel, who Israel is supposed to be, correctly, straightly, rightly, yasharly, you'll be able to identify the Elohim of Israel. He calls himself Yahweh Zavot, the Elohim of Israel. But when Israel goes punk, rogue, rotten, worshiping and running after, harlotizing itself with Elohim Achrim, the gods of others, the culture of the other nations, there's a disconnect, there's a cutoff of the Yashar straight line between the two dots, and Israel is cut loose like a kite in the wind with no string, and it's gone. And Yahweh says, I'm going to cast you across the face of the earth until the time of the end, Kufsadi. The end of what? The end of the curse of the banishment, not necessarily the end of the world. So Kufzadi is to cut off. So the end of the time of being cut off, that means we're allowed to come back from being cut off. It's all how you read it. Is it the end of the world? Like, oh no, the space aliens are going to come, and or is it the rapture? Or is it, hey, we've been banished and we've been kicked out, Shin Lamed Chet Shalakt, for nearly 3,000 years, 2,730 until 2010, as one count goes. And now we get to come home like the prodigal son, like Jeremiah 31, Ephraim saying, bring me back and I will come back. If that's where we're at, then Kufzadi, like Pezadi, the flourishing of the mouth, the return of the language, the opening of the eye, the blossoming of the seed into a flower, well, that's where we are. Then that's what this is. So then that's what ironing this stuff properly should yield. Which is why we're doing this one. Now we got to take a break. Carla?